Welcome back to Elsplend Realities, where we explore the truths beneath the surface of success, resilience, leadership, and the inner work that shapes how we show up in the world. This is a space for real stories, emotional clarity, and conversations that don't shy away from the hard parts of being human. Today's guest embodies exactly what this show stands for: honesty, grit, and growth forged through lived experience. Today, I'm joined by Allie Grack, a nationally recognized marketing executive, founder of founder of Workhorse Marketing, and a woman whose life story defies every expectation placed on her. Ali's journey began with instability, adoption, abuse, foster care, constant movement, and survival at a young age. She became a teen mom in a system that rarely leaves room for reinvention. Yet she built a thriving career in a male-dominated industry and founded an agency rooted in truth, transparency, and human connection. Her leadership style is shaped by resilience, emotional insight, and a deep respect for how people think and work differently. Diagnosed with ADHD at 50, Ali reframed what she once thought was chaos into one of her greatest strengths. Today, she leads an all women leadership team, supports other women in the workplace, and speaks openly about identity, reinvention, and building success without losing yourself. Unfiltered, reflective, and deeply human, this is a conversation about resilience, self awareness, leadership, and creating meaning from mess. Welcome to our Splend Realities, Ali. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
That your early life was marked by constant change and instability. How did those experiences shape the way you read people and situations today?
Yeah, I mean, things were always in constant flux growing up. And so I think what it allowed me to do was to always be kind of looking forward and have a sense of what's the next shoe to fall, which, is a lot of trauma reaction to how I was raised and the things that I had to adapt to. But it provided a really strong foundation of being just hyper aware of what the outcomes could be if they weren't managed correctly.
Here, you said survival came before success for a long time. At what point did you at what point did your definition of success begin to shift from getting through to building intentionally?
Great question. There are still days that sometimes it feels more like just get through the day for all of us, I'm sure. But definitely, as I grew into my 50s and kind of realized that, the things that I'd always been judged for the chaotic mind and the ongoing changes and things like that were actually my superpower. And so, really being able to start to develop that as a form of success and a form of resilience instead of looking at it as a survival instinct is really when I started to see the change. So, as I rolled into my 50s and kind of allowed myself to be exactly who I was with no apologies, I still do the work. I still have a lot of things that I would love to improve on. I have a lot of things that I want to be better at. But now, instead of looking at them as flaws, I just look at them as opportunities. And that really feels like success. Nothing in business or life uh, feels better than feeling like you're living your most authentic version.
Yeah, very true. Moving through foster care, teen motherhood, and corporate leadership requires emotional adaptability. What helps you develop resilience without becoming emotionally closed off?
Yeah, that is a trick. I will say that is really hard because when the people who are most responsible for your love and care betray that at a young age, it is very difficult to open yourself up to that feeling exposed again. And so relationships have been very challenging over the course of my life as far as how to relate to people when you, in the back of your mind, are waiting for abandonment or distrust or, betrayal. So I think really I probably would think it's probably one of my greatest successes is that I still am willing to open myself up after all of that, because I feel like if I allow the people who victimized me as a child or the system that victimized me as a child or the, relationships who did prove me right, if I allow them to win, what is it keeping me from? And so developing a sense of willingness to be open, but also provide parameters of, okay, you've gone too far. And knowing that it's time to cut those out and not trying to fix those is a healthy space. Now, I'll put a lot of effort in this new fad of going no contact. I don't I don't necessarily believe that's the answer, but a healthy medium of like, are we working on this relationship? Is there a path forward? Can this be a positive thing in my life? Those have to be addressed for sure.
Yeah, very true. You lead with honesty and directness. How do you balance being candid with maintaining empathy, especially in high stakes professional environments?
It is very difficult sometimes. With age comes wisdom, definitely. I was very much a bull in the china shop as a young lady, but I was in a field and a career that was, very competitive, very male dominated, and honestly, I didn't really have a lot of time for some of that empathy and understanding. And it is what moved me forward in my career, but it definitely put challenges in that space as well. And now, I have much better sense of, like, giving people grace and recognizing that people communicate differently and that they have different lived experiences. When you're running in a space of, fight or flight constantly, when you always feel like the next big disruption is coming, you don't have a lot of space for other people's reactions or feelings or things like that. You're in survival mode. And, I use the analogy a lot. The people on the Titanic didn't get picky about their lifeboats. So a lot of times I was willing to, overlook some things based on just knowing that I needed to survive to the next phase and pay the bills and take care of my children and do those things. Whereas now I feel so much more secure in where I am, not just emotionally, but financially and, in relationships. So that has allowed me to create a sense of empathy that I've always had, but didn't necessarily allow to lead. And so leading with that now and placing others' needs not necessarily ahead of mine, but in line with mine has been a real blessing in my career to be able to do that instead of just having to push through with perseverance.
Yeah. Being diagnosed with ADHD later in life reframed how you understood yourself. How did that awareness change the way you treat your mind instead of fighting it?
Yeah, that's been a big change. I've always almost felt a sense of broken or less than because I did have a really fast moving creative mind, inability to focus on one thing for a long period. And, coming up through management, marketing, media, all of that, there's very strict guidelines back then about make your bed every morning, spend this much time doing this chore, if you are mindlessly sitting around, it's a waste of time and be productive, productive, productive. And now I know that some of my most productive time is the time that I am just kind of relaxing my brain or being imaginative and allowing my creative juices to flow. And I no longer disrupt that that as much. And I, it's kind of funny. It's a joke in my family is like, I don't make my bed. I don't need that level of structure to be successful. I don't need a set schedule every single day to be successful. What makes me successful in this creative space is the ability to move quickly, adapt quickly, change my mind frame really quickly, and to allow those creative thoughts to percolate and become something like a new campaign for a client or a creative piece, that is gonna help inspire people. So it's been a big switch from kind of a um, where you just felt like you had to apologize for some of how your brain works. Now I fully embrace it. I identify things like past Allie did this or, alternate Allie took over in this meeting and because she has that level of information. And so just kind of having fun with it and being okay with the idea that I have a lot of different reactions and personas and different things. And that's what makes me unique and special and successful.
Yeah, true. Because we are all unique in our own ways.
Right. And coming up, especially as a female in this industry heavily dominated by men, um you wanted to replicate the success you saw that the men had. And now I don't want any part of that. I want my own version of success. I want my success to look exactly like what we're doing, which is, doing the right thing for our clients, treating our staff, our team like partners and having good relationships and giving them the time that they need in their lives to live authentically. That brings me great joy. I don't need what they had anymore.
Yeah. You've built an agency culture rooted in trust and autonomy. What emotional skills do you think are most essential for healthy leadership today?
Definitely, I mean, you touched on it before. I think empathy is one of the biggest ones, and acknowledging how different all of the team needs to really function. So creating an army of allies is not goal number 1. Having people who supplement what I am good at and what I am not good at has become kind of the truth to the path forward. And so having people who are very analytical and very good at finite details and looking at information and, having a CFO that is very conscious of that, of her lane in that space and the money, and having a client services director that's very organized allows me to continue to support what they're good at, but also allows me to continue to develop what I am good at. And respecting that space has been very important to me. Also, allowing them to develop in their own unique way. So just because you come on as, a social media person doesn't mean you can't decide within our team to, hey, this is not the space I want to be in. Would you help me move my career in this direction? And it's an automatic yes. Whatever I can do to improve their own personal goals and ambitions will only benefit the team in the long run, even if it puts a gap in our team in the short term. So, really, just looking at it through a lens of the big picture and what's best for everyone, instead of having the linear goal of traditional success, has been a game changer for sure.
Yeah. Supporting women in a space you once entered alone is clearly important to you. What emotional patterns do you see women still struggling with in professional spaces?
Really good question. It is still, even in a safe space, difficult if you don't have a level of confidence, a level of bull in a china shop to speak up and to speak freely, even though there won't be repercussions. So, in general, I think women tend to hold back in a professional setting more than I would like to see, not just on my team, but in partnership relations or things like that. And there is still a sense of very competitive behavior out there between women. Now, thankfully, not on our team. We're very supportive of each other. But when you get out into, the real world, there is still a lot of, undermining and backstabbing and talking about and mean girl behavior that really, not only does it reflect poorly on the women that are doing that, but it continues to signal to the next generation that that's a tolerable way to exist, and it's not. And so really speaking openly about, accepting people for where they are and and they don't have to be a replication of who you are and what your dreams and visions are. Like owning that you can still support someone even if you don't align with their personality, I think is key. Absolutely key for women to move forward is to acknowledge that helping someone doesn't diminish your space in this world.
Yeah, yeah, that's so true. Travel plays a big role in how you recharge and observe human behavior. How has stepping outside familiar environments deepened your self awareness?
Yeah, I think it is definitely something that, especially in these uncertain times, that is so important. And even as a child, one of my escapes in my chaos was the Rick Steves travel show on PBS. And he would travel around the world, primarily Europe, and expose other cultures. And so as soon as I was able, I wanted to get on a plane. I wanted to explore. I wanted to see those new places. And I've been so fortunate. I spend a lot of time abroad now. I think last year it was 115 days of my time was spent somewhere besides my home. And that is such an honor and a privilege. And I take it seriously. So when I do go, not only do I just try and, allow myself to enjoy it, but I try and learn. What can I learn from this experience? And seeing how other cultures live in community or communicate or even the ads. I love foreign advertising. I find it fascinating. Even if I can't understand the language, I love seeing them. Um, but seeing those unique lived experiences and the unique cultural differences really reminds me to get out of my own safe space. And so when it comes to an ad, to be able to use that perspective to say, hey, this ad isn't for me or about me. So let's talk to the person that it is for in an authentic way. And so authenticity really came from those lived experiences and from moving around and seeing different things and unique people. And I think it's probably one of the things I'm most grateful for in this life is the ability to see outside my very small world that most people keep themselves in.
Yeah, yeah, that's something to be grateful for.
Yeah, very, very glad I've been able to experience those things.
Yeah. As someone who's lived through chaos, how do you now recognize when it's time to slow down instead of pushing through?
Oh, I that is a challenge, because I love a challenge. I love, I always say I'm a great chaos coordinator because the wilder things get, the calmer I get because I know it's necessary. And so that's not a healthy response maybe, but it's how I function. But there is definitely a point now, and probably for the first time in my life and career where I will allow myself to have those moments of quiet and have those moments of peace and recognize that self-care is important. But, for years it's been taking care of other people, solving other people's problems. That was what I was good at. And now just kind of relinquishing that. My kids are all grown. My oldest will be 36. this week actually, and allowing them now to have the, responsibility and the right and the privilege of determining their own path, and I don't need to problem solve for everyone, has given me a much broader opportunity to just enjoy the space that I'm in with grandchildren and travel and even simple things like just not doing anything in an evening. For years it was a hustle. It was, oh, if I'm not out at every event or every, happy hour or this or, on the hustle, then it was a failure. I felt significant guilt about downtime. And honestly, I don't think I took a nap until I was 50. Naps always felt very lazy, unproductive. Um, I was embarrassed if I felt like I was tired. And so now just allowing that space where it's like, oh, you get to be tired. This is a safe space to go rest and not feel judged. So, but it's taken a lot. I would say it's one of the bigger challenges that I've had.
Yeah. Wow, you said your oldest will be 36 this week. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Congratulations to her and happy birthday in advance to her.
Yes, thank you. She's amazing. I'm, really proud of what she's been able to accomplish in her life as well, with all of my children, but it is it's a privilege to get to this space where the dynamics change, in relationship, especially mother-daughter. They're very tricky
Yeah.
relationships. So
Looking at where you are now, what emotional lesson took you the longest to learn, but changed everything once it landed?
Oh, that's a good one. I think and I work on these things every day. I still, have regular therapy with multiple therapists because I think the one thing that has been the hardest for me is that my love language is caring for you financially and taking care of your problems and being a fixer and these things. And so really the hardest lesson to learn has been allowing the people that I love, the space to make their mistakes or not be bailed out of your own problems every single time, and that's hard. There were a lot of things parenting that I wish I could go back and do differently, because I was so focused on financial, like, "Are you okay? Will you have what you need financially?" That some of the emotional, things got overlooked, and that's rough. That's hard to acknowledge, but now realizing that, my own mental health and my own, peace need to be protected at all costs, because really everything else you're just running on, um dysfunction. Everything else was just kind of falling into, chaos because it was a constant crisis. Now, I let other people have their crises and try and just maintain my own peace and focus on my life and, my husband and, kind of keep that a safe space now. That's hard. That's very difficult when you see people you care about making decisions that maybe you wish they would make different decisions about. So
Yeah, that's true. But sometimes you'll be like, I don't want to pry.
right, right, and I was a big prior. I mean, to be fair, like, that's just kind of who I am. I love, being in the know, fixing a problem. If there's a problem, and that actually is one of the ADHD superpowers is kind of being able to see solutions in rapid fire. We don't have to process
Mm.
a lot of things to see where the correct path might be, and now I try and if you want me to help you, I will be the first one in line, and I will take over, and I will do whatever you need me to do if that's what you want, but I no longer do that, unless it's asked of me. Sometimes it's still hard. I still struggle with it, but you know what? It's not healthy for me, and it doesn't help the relationships I'm in.
Yeah. Ali, thank you for bringing your truth, your clarity, and your lived wisdom into this space. Your story reminds us that leadership doesn't come from perfection, it comes from awareness, accountability, and the courage to keep evolving. We're grateful for the work you're doing, the women you are uplifting, and the honesty you bring into every room you enter. Thank you so much, Ali.
Oh, thank you. It's been a wonderful conversation. I appreciate your time and your grace.
You're welcome, Ali. Where can listeners learn more about the work you do and also connect with you?
I am on LinkedIn, Allie Grack, and then also teamworkhorse.com is our website.
Thanks again, Ali. This has been a wonderful conversation.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And to our listeners, thank you for staying present with us. If today's conversation stirred something in you, let it be a reminder that your story doesn't have to be polished to be powerful. Growth is allowed to be messy, awareness is allowed to be uncomfortable, and resilience is built one honest moment at a time. This has been Elsplend Realities. Until next time, stay grounded, stay curious, and keep choosing growth.